What should I know about Veritasium?
It was under the blood moon. I felt my heart come. I held you in this strange light, a place where shadows.
So basically, I'm looking to tie the entire world to Veritaseum. Okay. And I say recent because there are no crypto experts. Satoshi himself only published the idea in 2008, and that's the guy that created it. So, you know, and it's only 2021. So there are no old school experts in crypto.
Right.
Okay. So Ethereum went in a different direction. Ethereum has more utilitarian value and more use, much more velocity than Bitcoin. Everybody's ignoring that. Bitcoin maximalists don't want to hear it. This is simple math and observation. Okay. Bitcoin has more mind share. Okay. Not market share, but more mind share. And at least for right now, a higher propensity for global macroeconomic value.
Right.
But everything above that, Bitcoin right now is mostly speculative value.
Right.
Okay. Ethereum is mostly utilitarian value. Now I'm going to land my plane soon. So
Sure.
the reason or the cause for the speculative value to be less of the component of Bitcoin's value can come from two things. Global macroeconomic value or macroeconomic value can increase, like the adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador. It's a big deal.
And possibly Brazil.
Right. If it catches on, that's what if it catches on, that global I keep saying global, that macroeconomic factor increases more and more and more. So that's higher Bitcoin value or higher Bitcoin price, point number one. Point number two is utility value, right? Which is more straightforward and has a higher probability of increasing the price more. Okay. Bitcoin is slow, right? It's cumbersome. When it gets busy, the fees are high. But things like the liquid sidechain or the Lightning Network put significantly more utility and utilitarian value in Bitcoin, meaning you can jack the price up a lot. It can be justified fundamentally.
Right.
Okay. Somebody actually patented the processes, the systems, the device, and the methods, right, for that utility value.
That must have been one smart fellow.
Just an observing killer. He's actually not that bright, but he did patent it early. Okay. Yeah. And he was attacked by the SEC. He's from America. He's American, lives in the US. He lives walking distance, a long walk, but walking distance from the SEC's offices. He was attacked from the SEC and forbidden to do business in certain aspects of crypto and securities, or I don't even know, certain aspects of the business in the US. So the patent holder of the IP rights was told he had to leave the country to do business, which means I can guarantee you it is now more expensive to use that IP in the US than it is to use it outside the US. Okay.
So you're telling me it's a big club and you're not in it?
I'm saying it's a big club. That person's not in it, but that person owns the deed to the clubhouse.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen. I'd agree with that.
So what this enforcement action did was it made the Lightning Network more expensive to use in the US than everywhere else in the world, despite the fact it's a US invention, it's a US product, the IP was formed in the US. Okay.
So we're pushing the best technology that we have offshore, is what you're saying.
Right. And it's provable. I can point to a patent, point to the claims, you can point to the Lightning Network code at the protocol level. So it's impossible to get around at the protocol level. So anybody who writes or uses anything on top of the protocol would be infringing. That is one example of many. Another example, look at Ripple, right? The same prosecuting team went after Ripple, okay? In Japan, where one of these patents are from, okay, everything is going well. Ripple is tearing things up in Japan, okay? The Japanese government is very clear on regulation. They don't seem to be picking winners and losers arbitrarily or not. The US doesn't seem to have this issue.
Wow.
The US does seem to have these issues. So The economic activity is gravitating to Japan. And it's not like Ripple is not capable of doing business in the US, but because of the prosecution, which Ripple is saying is devoid of fair notice, but I'm not going to get into that right or wrong because I have to be careful what I say.
Sure.
You can guess what side I'm rooting for, though.
Right. You and me both.
Right. This action is driving all that expertise, all that economic activity offshore. The Japanese are loving what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's putting them in a better position, in my opinion.
No matter all the economic competitors of the US are on the SEC side because it benefits them. Okay. And let's suppose the SEC loses against Ripple, right? They slow Ripple down. And Ripple's most ingenious products, such as on-demand liquidity, right, which are very interesting. Guess what?
It infringes on your IP?
Right. That IP is owned by someone who has been chased out of the US.
Wow. It's just incredible. Just incredible. Yeah, the SEC did.
You know, and then you have Ripple and the users of Ripple's products. These are not typical mom and pop entities. American Express, MasterCard, Visa, Dow Securities, Matsushita Bank, SBI. Okay. It will be, and I can tell you, more expensive to use that in the US than it is in certain places offshore, as long as jurisdictions are tripped. Okay. I'm not going to tell you, what patents I plan to get and plan not to get, but what's already been delivered. Okay. I can tell you where it would be more expensive to use it and where it won't be more expensive.
So let me give you go ahead.
Okay. And it's very, very difficult to avoid jurisdiction. Or it's much more difficult to avoid jurisdiction than most people think. The US says, let's use something like the Justice Department or FinCEN, et cetera, other US regulatory bodies. They say that if you use a bank that uses US dollars, the US has jurisdiction over you. Okay.
Wow.
If you use a server that is on US soil or in US jurisdiction, the US has jurisdiction over you. Just using a server. The internet is basically a large decentralized network. So it's very difficult to avoid using a server in the US if you use something that's pinging and hopping from bit to bit. Chances are it's going to hit the US. Let's turn that logic around. I get a patent in first, second, third largest economic jurisdiction in the world, right? You say, well, I'm not going to do business there. And you send a transaction through the blockchain, right? One of the nodes in that blockchain, it's that jurisdiction. That jurisdiction now has jurisdiction over you.
Wow.
How do you avoid going through China or Great Britain or the EU or Japan? Some transactions you can if you know what you're doing. Most people can't. Most companies can't. And if you do, then you're restricting yourself and you become more centralized. For every jurisdiction that I would get a patent on, the more centralized you have to be.
Interesting.
Which defeats the entire purpose of using a decentralized network. This is all due to, in my opinion, trying to pick winners and losers. But again, I'm biased. Okay, you were saying.
So it sounds like the technology that you own the IP for has the possibility to add value to systems like the Lightning Network, like the XRP on-demand liquidity. Does your technology go that far? Does it help and add value to these systems? Drive the price down, make it more usable, more mass adoption friendly?
Well, let me start with everything that I said today. I should have said this in the beginning. It should be common sense, but I'm going to give a disclaimer.
Sure.
Okay. Everything that comes out of my mouth is my opinion. Okay. I want you to consider it my opinion for the mere fact that I said it. So it's my opinion. So it's not legal advice. It's not technical advice. It's not financial advice. It's just what Reggie thinks. Okay. So the way I see the IP is I came up with the idea that was basically the Lightning Network, or very similar, back in 2013, 2014. We filed patent protection. Patents are starting to become be granted. We have one granted in a very powerful area. And it basically, someone else came up with a similar idea, developed it, but they developed it based upon my IP. So it's not a matter of whether they can make it better or not. It's a matter of it belonging to me. Okay. Now, do I think I can improve upon it? Immensely. I really do.
Awesome.
Okay. Same thing with Ripple's technology. It's not a matter of whether my technology can make it better or not. It's that Ripple built a very elegant product. I've been going through all this stuff in detail. So
I'm sure.
Hats off to Ripple, hats off to the Lightning Network author as well. Not necessarily that simple, but very elegant. Well done. Okay. But it's done based upon my intellectual property. Okay. Can I make the Ripple products better? In my opinion, absolutely. And I don't say have to make it better. I'll gladly work with Ripple. Now, Ripple's a for-profit company. Okay. I'll gladly work with them and all their clients. And, I can add ideas or they can simply license IP and go off on their business. Okay. Same thing, not the same thing with Lightning Network, because Lightning Network is a protocol. Okay. And now people build on top of that protocol, such as Strike. It's a company called Strike. CEO is a very young guy, but very charismatic, though.
I've seen him. He's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, very charismatic. Funny, too. So he has a for-profit company that builds products based upon the protocol. Okay. And he would be the one who I would make a deal with or not. Okay. But you can't make a deal with the protocol. But the protocol itself is based, in my opinion, upon my IP. Now, you can't avoid using my IP if you use the protocol.
Right.
Like
it's pervasive. Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting. We're going pretty long here, Reggie. I got one more question. Maybe you can give us a short answer because I think it kind of fits in with analyzing crypto from a macro perspective. Governments are all creating and testing CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. In the US, there's a bill to monitor any transaction over $600 in the legislature right now. It seems that the future of crypto may be a double-edged sword. Many of us got into this space because of the promise of decentralization and, for example, being your own bank. That was a big attractor for me. Is there a possibility that the sovereign governments would use crypto as a locus of control over the people's money? And in your opinion, will governments attempt to outlaw private cryptocurrencies in favor of CBDCs like the digital yuan?
Well, I don't think it's a probability. I think it's a guarantee.
Okay.
That's what governments do. Early in the conversation.
Yeah, they don't like competition.
Yeah, their job is to do their job, and they need to control their currency, which is why the big brouhaha over Bitcoin and crypto, et cetera, and massive amounts of misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah,
massive amounts.
Yeah.
Honestly, Bitcoin should be favored by the government because of its transparency. You see a lot of people use Bitcoin for ransomware and theft. I was robbed. Actually, technically, I was not robbed. My cell phone carrier was robbed, and they allowed somebody to get into my systems and then rob me. But they did it through the blockchain, so you could track them down. Everybody who robbed me in the summer of 2017, or at least I think 4 people, are indicted. One of them was waiting sentencing. The others are going through the process.
Wow.
Okay. Not very easy to rob somebody and leave a roadmap of how you got there and where you went.
Yeah, cryptocurrency is the worst way to steal something.
It's not a good idea, but hey, to each their own, right?
Right.
But expect a crackdown on crackdown and a lessening of privacy with the adoption of crypto. The government can't resist. If you were the government, you wouldn't resist. You would do it if you were the government, because that would be your job. Now, private crypto, nobody forces you to use CBDCs. Do you think of CBDCs, and what was the title of this show again? Veritaseum and Masada.
Right.
The fact that CBDCs are Masada,
I don't see many. I personally don't see. I see it being rejected, and I think that if you look at the introduction of the digital yuan in the Chinese population, They thoroughly rejected that effort.
I don't see the Chinese government giving a lot of options.
Yeah.
They will give you like maybe 3 options. You can use the yuan, you could use the yuan, or I'll tell you what, you use the yuan.
Right. Those are your options.
So
That's good.
if I was the Chinese government with the Chinese government history and their power, that's what I would do.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Once you have that power, you don't want to relinquish it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, as for private cryptos, how are they doing in China?
They're not doing anything at all, but they've been outlawed.
They've been outlawed, and everything around them. Working for a private crypto company has been outlawed. I hear the education materials are outlawed. They're burning books, basically. The 21st century version of book burning. China's serious about this. And China is probably the most bullish crypto-friendly jurisdiction in the world.
Wow.
Just Chinese crypto.
How do we make that transition, though? How do we bring them into the private crypto world, or does that happen organically?
Well, it all depends on if you live in or without China. I think it's very dangerous to challenge the Chinese government, just like I think it's very dangerous to challenge the U.S. government. I in no way want to. If anybody in the government felt I did, I apologize. I didn't mean it, right? But the China seems more authoritarian than the U.S., but I'm not sure I can roll with that. The US approaches it differently, and those in the U.S. are awash in propaganda, just like those in China are. Okay, there are a lot of things you can't do. Look at the battle between the private sector and the government in terms of crypto. You just discussed, Telegram, Veritaseum, and Ripple. There's a guy who, after Dr. Wisdom is doing this, but went to North Korea to give a speech about how to use, open source portions of Ethereum after he was told not to. Wow. The U.S. is serious, and I think he got 20 years.
Wow.
Or 10 years. I can't remember the actual detail, but he got in a lot of trouble, much more trouble than if he didn't go. So the U.S. is serious about it. China is obviously serious about it. I think the U.S. realizes it would be a mistake to outlaw private crypto, but what they will do is they're going to corral it. So you don't need to outlaw it to control it. They are corralling it into the IO ports. Okay.
Well, Gary Gensler recently stated he would not ban crypto in the U.S. I don't know how much I trust that statement, but that's what he said.
If you could have said he would not effectively hamper crypto in the U.S., I think that's good. Yeah. But saying you're not going to ban it is not the same as you're not going to hamper it. So when I say control the IO ports, that's a technical term. IO is input output. It's a technical term. They're going to control the on ramps and the off ramps.
Gotcha.
From fiat to crypto.
Gotcha.
Coinbases, Krakens, etc. Okay. Now, I think that's going to fail because there's enough momentum where the crypto itself can be the actual denominating currency. DAI, right? DAI could be a denominating currency, and once you're in for good. You don't have to go out into government fiat. And a lot of people, well, how would you get DAI? Well, you have 100 DAI. I want 100 DAI. I give you $100 bill. You send me 100 DAI.
Yeah.
That's how Bitcoin was traded when I started.
Right.
I bought my first Bitcoin from Tony Vase at the New York Bitcoin Center.
You're kidding me, did you?
2014.
That's interesting.
2013. Yeah. Cash. I probably shouldn't say that. I hope we don't get in trouble for it.
Well, luckily we got editing power here. Yeah, I remember I bought my first Bitcoin in 2012 for $10. And I had to go to a Walgreens and send a money order into the service and wait 2 weeks for it to hit my wallet. So that was old school. That was old school. Well, listen, we've got some questions that we've gathered from the Veritaseum community for you. I thought we might go into a lightning round and just kind of rattle off a few questions and maybe get some short answers from you, because I think we're going on about 2 hours or an hour and a half here now. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is from Azanaya M. given the connection between finance and policy decisions, is a draconian authoritarianism being exercised on behalf of central bankers in introducing bills to monitor expenditures over $600? And what are the implications for ordinary crypto purchasers? And you've gone over some of this, so.
So I'm going to skip past the modifiers and the adjectives. Okay.
Sure.
Basically, yes, they're exercising control over money. A sovereign's power is rooted in its currency and its military.
Right.
And its geopolitical stature. And its geopolitical stature is rooted in its currency and its military. And its currency is rooted in its military.
Right.
So think what is the pyramid. Okay.
Right. Again, the biggest guns win.
Right.
Gotcha. So this is from Earl Tyrell. How long until the VDARE gets turned back on?
Yeah, the Vader, and that is our DApp that we opened up 4 or 5 years ago, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
That's having regulatory ambiguity issues. Not the precious metal side, but a lot of things were changed. We were drained of our capital from litigation, and gas prices have skyrocketed in F, meaning that any transaction that's not for kilograms or multiple ounces are impractical. So I do plan on turning it on once regulatory ambiguity has been cleared. Okay, but we are dealing in IP now, and I'll go license that off to others if they're so interested. There are a lot of, and we're also building similar functionality, but I can't speak on it yet.
Okay, understood. There is no precedent for financial technology, including blockchain patent operations. Most countries are not friendly to software patents. How will you deal with these challenges?
Okay. Well, he's right. I know the US is not, which is interesting. I've had a crash course on patent law, international patent law, and IP law. And the US was friendly to software patents. The US has the largest count and the most powerful software companies in the world. Google, Microsoft, Oracle, you name it. At a certain point, they've amassed a lot of patents and a lot of power and a lot of money, but intellectual capital, brain, smarts, intelligence, drive is not the individual purview of a large corporation. People are smart, corporations are not. So after they've got these big patents, small inventors came up with very good ideas and they patented them. And they went after the companies like Microsoft and IBM and Oracle. Cost them a pretty penny because they were infringing on these small guys' patents. Okay. It's not easy to enforce a patent, but if you find out a way to do it and the patent is valid, you're going to get paid for it. Okay. Miraculously, you had a ruling, Alice Corp, called Alice, and it basically invalidated patenting software or similar ideas. That's after the big companies have established their patent collection and made them, hundreds of billions.
Right.
Okay. Coincidental, of course. Right. With the blockchain is basically software and ideas, but there are ways to bind that with hardware, create actual solutions and methods, and these solutions require hardware.
Right.
You can't run the blockchain. This is going through a distributed network right now, okay? But you're using a screen with a memory, with storage, with input-output port, I/O, probably Ethernet, wireless connection, etc. Hardware. So when you bind your solution to hardware and make a hardware solution out of it, you now have a system or a method or a device, okay, that can pass Alice.
Okay.
That's how you do it in certain jurisdictions. There is one jurisdiction that doesn't act funny like that, and it happens to be one of the largest economies in the world, and it happens to be where all the guys who are getting chased out of the U.S. are congregating. You could guess where that is.
I'm going to guess Japan.
You got it.
All right.
Okay. Japan
Really
has
good company
very
there.
vibrant, very, very vibrant IP market.